Okay, welcome back. This is another Walkman repair video. This is the WM-10. I already did another video. You can check my other videos. There's another one on a repair of that one. But what this is going to be is basically cobbling together that previous Walkman because it has a misaligned head and mechanism that is jammed. And this one is going to be the donor of the mechanism audio board if it's good. And the other Walkman, which is much cleaner as far as its door and its rear panel, will be put onto this one. The first thing that I'm going to do on this is I'm going to try and zoom in. And I'm going to augment a light here to see if I can make sure that you can see that. So there's a tiny bit of corrosion there that I'm going to end up cleaning on this side too. Let's see, get the light in the right position. A little bit of battery corrosion. So I knew this getting the Walkman. My hopes is that I'll be able to clean it and have the only other step to be to replace the belt, clean the belt, replace the belt, and then replace the rear panel and the door from the other donor Walkman and be done. So what we're going to start out with is something I bought at Radio Shack years ago, and it's a battery terminal cleaner. And what this will do is help neutralize any acid that may be present in the residue that's on the battery terminals. And you definitely don't want to take this stuff and just start spraying it inside. You want to be very careful with it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put a little bit of it on a Q-tip here. And let me tear a smaller piece of this paper towel. Shake it up a little. Okay. And we're just going to spray a little. And you got to be very conservative with spraying this because it foams up and expands. So I haven't used this in a little while, so the nozzle is kind of clogged. Okay, there we go. All right. Sorry, that was off camera. I was struggling to get that to... Okay, so it expands, and we're going to wait because it's foam, and as it sits there, it'll start to deflate, and it'll start to soak into the Q-tip. So now I'm just going to start cleaning a bit here and try not to get it on any of the plastic surfaces too much because this stuff is yellow or it turns yellow, I guess. And it's supposed to change color in the presence of acid, I guess. But what I'm trying to do here is basically just do a cleaning, get that gunk off of there. And then we'll throw a battery in and see if there's any signs of life on this thing. And let me get a light in there and see if we can see. Wow. Yeah, that's much cleaner. I still see a little bit on there. So, okay, so this side is not looking too bad. There is still a corrosion spot right dead center. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that off with a Q-tip. But what I am going to do is let me start wiping. Now this side is the harder side because this one is the negative terminal here. And let me move this ribbon out of the way. The negative terminal is the spring-loaded one that bends when you push the battery in. So my fear is that spring contact will be corroded to where it's going to break, but it didn't look too bad, so I'm going to just continue cleaning here and see if I can get this to come cleaner, and we'll come back after I'm done. Okay, so although the corrosion didn't seem too bad, it's just very stubborn, and so I'm going to remove the door so I can get better access in there. So to remove the door on the WM-10, you only have to remove 2 screws. this one and this one, and then the door will come right off. So let me get that done. I'm putting the screws into a magnetic dish over here, and I'm getting a strong but small magnet to put onto my screwdriver here so that I don't lose the screws easily. They'll stick to the screwdriver. But we also want to remember that, you know, we're dealing with a cassette mechanism here that does rely on the tape head not to be magnetized, so we don't want to be touching the tape head with this screwdriver or the magnet. Okay, setting that stuff aside. To get the door off of this, you simply grab and you pull, open the door, and you want to wiggle each side, and you can see that it comes off. Fairly easy. There. Now, I was looking and I noticed that I could not get the door to close all the way, and I'm noticing that there's something jammed down there in that corner. So let me take a look at the X-Acto blade here. Don't know what that is. It's a piece of plastic. And you know what? I will bet you anything that piece of plastic down there is from the battery door, the missing battery door. So, yeah, that's what that could be. Anyway, I noticed that was keeping the door from closing easily. So I'll bet you that's what that was, and that's all that's going to take to fix that. We'll set that aside. This now gives me much better access in there. So I've done some cleaning, but what I think I'm going to have to do to get in there and clean it better is I'm going to have to start scraping, maybe with an X-Acto blade. I was trying to scrape using this pair of pliers here, but I just wasn't making as decent a progress as I wanted. I did get a lot of the green stuff off with the Q-tips, but there's still some fine points in there that just aren't coming off easy. So what I'll do is do my best to scrape it clean, and then what we'll do is carefully remove the back, because by removing the back panel off of this, we'll get better access from behind, because this will be then open in the back here to get those battery terminals, to get access to them. So anyway, I'm going to try and scrape a little with the X-Acto and see if that gets some of this other stuff that's really trapped in there, and then also even just gently scraping the surface here of the terminal. See if that helps. Okay, so I've done the best I can at this stage to clean the battery terminals. I just went over and over again with an X-Acto trying to scrape any residue of corrosion. I also used some a duster to blow off any residue that was in there, and used some deoxit on a Q-tip to clean those terminals again once I had scraped them. So we're going to pop a battery in. I did confirm in another Walkman that this battery does work. It's rechargeable, but it did work. Got some headphones plugged in, so let's see if we get any life. Oh, bummer, nothing. Oh, I'm wrong. Okay. Now, if you watched my other WM-10 video, you will know that inside here are these micro switches that engage when you push your fast forward, rewind, and play button. And over the years, as these Walkmans sit, they tarnish. Those switches are, you know, just basically copper little contacts, and they tarnish. And what is needing to be done is they need to be cleaned with some deoxit, and then the Walkman will pretty much work again. So the fact that I got some life out of this, I I could hear the motor spinning inside. We didn't get any other movement here, so we know the belt, of course, after 40 years is going to be pretty much melted. It's going to be a gooey mess inside. So I was going to have to take this apart anyway. So the next step will be, and I'm going to do this tomorrow because I'm going to wait, but it'll be instant for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and do a tear down of this, and we'll clean the battery terminals maybe a little bit better from the back side, from back here coming through. Then I will clean all the mess of the belt. I did order a new belt and have it so that I'm not pillaging the belt from this one. I'm going to put a brand new belt in this. And then we'll see after all of that is done if we get a good functioning WM-10. All right, so we're going to continue with the teardown of this WM-10 Walkman. Set the door aside, and to take this apart, we've done this in a previous video if you want to watch that one as well. We need to remove these 4 screws and the volume control, and everything should come off, and we need to make sure that we don't lose little buttons here on the side for the tape type and noise reduction. So I've got a magnetic dish over here that I've been using to hold my screws. Definitely don't want to lose these because they're very hard to find if you drop them, and then you also end up really kind of messed up if you lose them permanently, because it's impossible to find these exact screws easily anyway. So as a tip, I have this little screwdriver that happens to have the perfect fit, and I put a magnet on it so that I can easily pull screws without losing them. And another tip here, those 2 screws in there are the first 2 that came off the bottom of the door, so it allowed me to remove the door. So now I'm just going to kind of sort of place them in order, so that I got the bottom and then the next 2 screws, so that try and keep them organized so they go back into the same exact spot from where they came. As I mentioned in a previous video, as I mentioned in the earlier part of this video actually, I've got a few other Walkman that I'm going to be doing some repairs for as soon as I get the replacement parts. I've got another recording Walkman that was an all plastic body. It wasn't a real high quality recording Walkman. It was something I bought while I was in college just because I wanted something to be able to record lectures, make audio notes on, and of course, you know, that was the early 90s when there really wasn't barely cell phones back then, let alone smartphones. And I also have a small Walkman that is a it's not a Walkman, it's a miniature tape recorder that has probably a need for a belt because it used to work great. And so I'm going to take a look and see if I can find a belt for that. Okay, so anyway, now we're going to take a look at removing this volume control. And so to do that, again, I'm using a little finishing nail here, and there's a couple of little holes here. The best way is to put your volume control all the way to 0, and I insert this nail into one of the holes, and I spin it counterclockwise, and this is a threaded piece here. And I'm going to use some tweezers here to pull this because I'm trying to pull it all once and kind of show you. So that's a threaded part there. And then underneath this volume wheel, there is a little, well, there's supposed to be a plastic sleeve. Yeah, there's a plastic sleeve. Okay, here it is. It's really difficult to see because it's totally clear. But that acts as a spacer. And being that this is the third in the series of these Walkman that I've taken apart recently, I can actually say this one is the thinnest, and it's probably the hardest one to see. So anyway, what we're going to do is I'm going to take that and drop that into the magnetic dish to keep it in place. Now, I'm going to zoom out and let us now move all this stuff kind of aside here. I don't need the finishing nail right now. Here comes the fun part of disassembly. Now, the trick on these Walkman, let me zoom out more. The trick is start from the bottom, and I'm just doing this with my thumbnail, just kind of prying it apart. Previous video, I used a plastic guitar pick, that is, because yeah, you don't really want to mess things up and lose things. Okay, but what you need to do is stop. Let gravity be your friend. These will fall out as soon as they stop pressing against the side of the circuit board switches. So I'm going to turn it this way so that gravity keeps those in place. Pry this up, get it up enough, and then gently start prying and pulling down, because you need to pull to get these controls, these switches clear from the backing. Okay, so that's how we do that. And first thing that we notice is, yeah, there's a piece of melted belt stuck on the back. I was expecting that. Okay, we're going to set that aside. All right. Next thing I'm noticing is, let me point with the tweezers, this wire assembly is very loose and it's frayed because the corrosion from the battery got on there. Okay. So I'm just wanting to make sure that this is all intact, that the wires haven't been damaged in any way. Feels very loose there, so I'm a little concerned. But, you know, I did feel power there before. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this lifted aside because I'm going to use this opportunity to scrub a little more of that green stuff off of the battery terminal there. And I'll take another look under a high powered light here and high magnification here to make sure I've got that clean. And then what I'll do, as was done originally, is I'll use a tiny bit of some tape here to secure this so that it does not get further damaged. Okay, this might not be the most ideal lighting for the camera. Doing the best I can, but basically what I'm doing is I'm keeping the battery lead here away, and I'm trying to get back in here underneath the negative battery terminal, and again just kind of scrape away at any of the remnants of the corrosion from the battery. And already pulled a little bit of green gunk from under there, and yeah, just trying to get rid of any trace of that, but also trying to be very careful not to break anything, not to damage anything further than what the corrosion has done. And again, the corrosion isn't horrible, but it is there. I do see it, and yeah, we're just trying to do our best to get rid of it here. And yeah, So I'll continue cleaning this until I'm happy with it, and then we'll get a another demonstration here of cleaning the switches and cleaning the gunky battery, or the gunky belt that has melted. And just as a reminder, if you didn't see the other videos, this is a Walkman that in the year 2023 turns 40 years old. And I think it is kind of cool that a new generation of music lovers are discovering the cassette tape, and that I think it is just a shame that manufacturers have not revived the process of making new cassette players and Walkman. And from what I've seen on other videos reviewing some of the newer tape decks, even from companies like TIAC, that it's basically the same generic tape transport mechanism that everybody else is using on newer tape decks. So it's not exactly a high-end deck. Gone are the days of really nice Kenwoods and Sonys and Nakamichis and all that stuff. And it's just really sad, because those were the days when the companies were really trying to outdo each other in making the best cassette decks, and that includes the Walkman. Okay, so I'm going to start the cleanup of the melted belt. This is off of a water jug. It's just a cap. I'm going to pour some alcohol into it. This is 70% isopropyl. Got a separate cap here. It's a little smaller. I'm just going to pour some more alcohol into it. Give me something to dip my cleaning Q-tips in. And I'll show in a minute why we're doing the two different reservoirs. First thing is, be conscious that this stuff gets all over your fingertips. It's a real pain in the butt. And I dip my fingers in the alcohol, try and get this off and get it clean, because once you get it on your fingers and you start touching things, like the other surfaces of the Walkman, you'll see, like in this area here, yeah, you'll start getting fingerprints. So anyway, let's get started. The first thing I want to do is we're going to address the cover of the actual motor, because it's really hard to get this off, or the old belt off, because it gets stuck underneath here and it gets all gunked up. So removing it is pretty much the only thing you can do. I'm going to pull this. Okay, so we got all three screws pulled from the cover of the motor, but as you'll see, it doesn't want to come off because there is this ribbon cable. You got to be really careful not to damage. The ribbon cable is glued down here to the top of this metal cover, and we got to get that cover off because there's going to be a lot of belt gunk, as you can see here through this little hole here. There's a lot of melted belt under there. So in order to do that, we're just going to dip a Q-tip in some alcohol, and we're just going to start wetting the glue that's under there. What I'll do is kind of pry it up slightly, stick the Q-tip underneath, and try to, little by little, getting that Q-tip with some alcohol underneath there to get the glue to dissolve best we can. Okay, so yeah, just slowly pushing alcohol under there. I managed to get that free. So now I'm going to take the tweezers here, and I'm going to carefully lift up. And I know it's already loose, but go ahead and remove this thing from covering the motor. Okay. Okay, and as we suspected, there's a bunch of gunk under there. And take a look at this side. Yeah, gunk in there. So I'm going to push this aside for a sec. This is the reason I filled 2 caps with alcohol. This is going to be the one. I'm just going to submerge that. And what alcohol seems to do is, help dissolve, but also maybe harden some of that rubber gunk so that way it doesn't get too smeared. But I mean, this stuff does smear. It's really nasty. As we see here, some on this right here, cleaning that off so it doesn't get on my fingers. Because yeah, it will. All right, so I'm not going to attempt to try and remove any glue from the ribbon cable. Looks like most of it ended up sticking to the motor cover. Keep wanting to say battery. I don't know why. Okay, now and we got to be careful because as this spins, you can actually see the coils of wire in the motor under there. So I'm going to try and carefully with a alcohol Q-tip. Yeah, look at that. Try and get this stuff off. So yeah, it gets everywhere. Stuff is just nasty, nasty, nasty. So trying to hold this from spinning so I can clean the center spindle here, the center of the motor. And yeah, as you can see, this stuff just smears, and a couple of wipes with a Q-tip and it's done. You got to get a fresh one. Yeah, that one's done. Okay, moving on to another one. So this in general just takes a lot of patience, because you got to get this stuff off. It's very sticky, very gooey. It will inhibit the spinning of the motor and the other gears over here, and it'll get all over your new belt when you put the new belt in. And yeah, it's just a necessity to clean all this gunk. Now you saw me wiping with the Q-tip that was soaked in alcohol. Got a lot of the belt off of the center of the motor here, but taking my X-Acto blade, dipped it in alcohol as well. And yeah, you got to really get all traces of that belt. And then the other side of it is the gears. You got to clean those. So you got to, I use an X-Acto. I go inside the groove of these here to get that belt out of there. Okay, just a quick little note. Because this ribbon cable has some glue on it, I did this before. I'm putting this piece of paper here because we don't want that residue of glue to become transferred back to this motor's surface here, because yeah, that'll cause a sticky mess, and it could end up being an issue when it tries to spin if it's sticking. So yeah, we're just gonna keep that there for the time being and remove it when we're ready to reassemble. Got a large chunk of the belt off of it, and just trying to get the last remaining remnants of the big pieces. And then what you need to do is turn it at an angle to see that, you know, there's usually some residue along the groove on the inside there, and that's why I use an X-Acto blade, because you've got to get in there into that groove and start scraping stuff out. So I've done the best I can to clean up the gears, the motor. Still haven't put the motor cover back on yet, but I will. A lot of this is just stains, you know, I mean, it doesn't come off, so it doesn't inhibit the playing ability. It's, you know, it's not gunk stuff on the surface. If you scrape it, it starts to come off, but you end up starting to scrape off the patina of the brass, what I believe that is. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is I've cleaned off my X-Acto blade as much as I can here, and I'm going to spray a little deoxit onto the tip of the X-Acto blade, and then we're going to attempt to clean off some of these electrical switches here. Okay, so right here, these switches look like they're tarnished. So you really want to get that clean, because that's where the actual electrical connections are being made to activate the motor, depending on which combination of switches you press. So that's why we're cleaning these. Okay, looks like I got it. It's the way it's supposed to spin. Everything's going pretty good there. All right, so now get the cover to the motor back on, which is simple enough. You just got to pop it back in. Grab my tweezers here. Got to lift it up a little bit because it's got to get under. There's a little ledge here that I'll have to turn it now. There we go. Get it into place. Okay. All right, I'm going to get all the screws in, and then we'll pop a battery in and see what kind of life we get out of this thing. All right, a moment of truth, so to speak. I've got the belt on. I've got a battery. I'm going to pop the battery in. Let's take a look here. Make sure I get it in right. Let's turn it over, and you got to be careful so that the battery doesn't come loose, because then you won't be making contact. And in order to get the WM-10 to work, you've got to have a pair of headphones plugged into the headphone jack, or it won't power up at all. Okay, we're not getting anything yet. Check the battery contact. Okay, we got life. Again, it's these switches here that are problematic. See, as I touched it, it's trying to play. I don't know if it's the switch or not. There it goes. Yeah, it's these switches. They just need to be cleaned. Again, there goes fast forward. And there's rewind. Okay, so again, I'm just going to clean them again with the tip of the X-Acto. Take the battery out. Use a little bit of the deoxit on the tip and clean it up, and we'll try it again. Okay, so after assembly, we've got it all working. I'm going to cut away to a still of the insides because lesson learned here, don't be in such a hurry. Part of the ribbon cable got trapped underneath the cover of the motor, and I had a bunch of problems with playback. I thought there were other issues, but just careful troubleshooting. I removed that cover, tested again, and everything played fine. And so yeah, I was just making sure that nothing was causing any friction on the motor. So here we go. This is finished assembly. And so again, I've taken the door from the other Walkman, put it on here. This one is now, I guess, a parts donor for any other thing that might fail on this. But here we go. No dent, which is nice. The back is not too bad. A couple little scuffs, but that it's the front that I was more concerned about. It's a little annoying on the spin down of the motor, but it works. That's the most important part. Thanks for watching.